drivers.
When I got to the accident scene, I found out that my son had passed away.
And their need
You hit 100, right? Yeah, I hit 100.
for speed. The fact that you would endorse your son doing that is shocking to me.
Driving 100 miles an hour plus, if you know what you're doing, is not going to be a problem.
Here's what a crash at 56 miles per hour looks like.
It's reckless driving, and it's reckless thinking.
You hit 100, right? Yeah, I hit 100. All right, pretty quick, huh? Yeah, that was... I was not expecting that.
All right, joining us virtually are Brent and Nash. Guys, how you doing?
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, it's good to have you. Brent, it's good to see you again.
You as well.
You've been on the show before on a completely different topic, and you and I could not have agreed more. And now we're here talking about something else, and we could not disagree more. I am really shocked to hear that this is something that you sign off on and actually do with your son, Nash. Nash, it's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'll meet you
So
in person.
you have exotic cars that'll do probably 200 miles an hour, and you guys go out and drive over 100 miles an hour. That's just your daily driving, correct?
In a monthly basis, when I'm driving those cars, I probably hit 100, over 100, probably multiple times. It's not hard for me to do it because I'm used to it. And that's one problem that I kind of see is that, and I feel very bad for those people, my condolences go out for their children, but the difference is that they weren't trained how to drive fast. Now, you showed the video of Nash driving over 100 miles an hour. I think he said drive, what, 110 or something?
Yeah, it was 110, something like that.
But it's important to understand how fast you're going, what that feels like. When you're driving 130 miles an hour, that's nearly 200 feet per second. You better know what you're doing. If you don't, you're going to have a bad accident.
Nash, you say that the top speed that you've reached on a freeway is 135 miles an hour, right?
That is correct.
And what exact training do you have for that?
Well, just honing my skills. I just take it out and I practice it, and I try to avoid other people. When I practice, I'm going on roads where I won't see anyone. I'm not going to hit anyone. Or I'm on the freeway late at night when there's barely anyone on there. I'm in the fast lane and I can't see a car for, gosh, I don't know, at least a mile.
You also can't see a coyote. You can't see a pothole. You can't see irregularity in the road, and you don't know what's going to happen if you have a blowout or a commercial tire that you have on your car starts separating and comes off. You have no idea what that car is going to do if that happens at that speed.
And what you say is true, but you don't buy cheap tires. And speed is not the problem. It's the car, it's the ability, and it's the roads that we drive on. They need to make our roads safer so you can drive faster. And it's not the speed again. I want to point that out. Driving 100 miles an hour plus, if you know what you're doing, is not going to be a problem.
A few years ago, if someone had asked me if reckless driving and street racing existed, I would not have had a clue. But unfortunately today, I know way too much about it. My son and Johnny loved cars, and he bought his first car. It was a Nissan 350Z. It was about 2 years ago. Johnny was leaving for work, and he said, "Mommy, I'm out." And I said, "Okay, son, drive carefully. I love you." And he said, "I love you more." Around 11 o'clock that night, I was already asleep. My son, Jahir, came in the room and woke me up and said, Mommy, Johnny's been in an accident." When I got to the scene of the accident, a police officer, he just shook his head. I knew in that instant that my son was not here. I screamed. I asked God to take my life and give him back his. What I found out was Johnny had been racing another car. People have speculated that he was traveling over 100 miles an hour. He lost control of the car. Johnny wasn't wearing his seatbelt, and upon impact, he was ejected from his car. If I could just reach one person and prevent what happened to a Johnny in our family from happening to theirs, then a Johnny's death would not be in vain.
You had no idea that he was out doing this or messing around this way?
No, I had absolutely no idea.
Right. And you know, we have some excerpts from AJ's traffic crash report. Witness 1 said they observed a red flash pass him and immediately observed a Mercedes pass him on the left side at a high rate of speed. Witness 2 said they observed a Mercedes pass him at a speed of 150 miles an hour, followed by a red vehicle. Vehicles were going so fast that it shook his vehicle, and that the summary, Party 1 approached the curve in the roadway and applied its brakes, and due to Party 1's unsafe speed, failed to negotiate the curve in the roadway and continued straight across all lanes and collided with the sound wall and continued rotating, so just out of control.
Out of control.
And you found out that was just kind of his driving pattern after the fact,
After
right?
the fact. After the fact, we discovered that a Johnny was illegally racing, and it wasn't just a one-off. This was his habitual practice. This was his driving habits. These were his behaviors. My son Johnny is brilliant. He's not dumb. It's been about 2 years since I lost my son Johnny to a street racing. Unfortunately, I'm reminded of a Johnny's accident every day because we have to drive this particular section of the freeway twice a day. To this day, you can still see where a Johnny's car made impact with the concrete barriers. I just wish that no other family will ever have to endure what my family has.
Raina said she had no idea that her son Johnny was involved in street racing until after he died in what witnesses claim was a high-speed interstate race. And you know, I've said we don't really think about these things, but the reaction time for an average person to react to something that pops up, like if they see somebody back out in front of them or an animal run across the road or something, is about 3/4 of a second. And at 55 miles an hour, a car travels over 80 feet per second. At 100 miles an hour, it travels over 146 feet per second. And so when you add in the reaction time of 3/4 of a second, then at 55, you go 60 feet in the time it takes to react. And at 100, you go almost twice that, or nearly 110 feet. Here's what a crash at 56 miles per hour looks like. And even at that speed, you can see how severe the damage is. Now, Avery was Johnny's best friend and says there have been times where he's blamed himself for Johnny's tragic death. Take a look.
AJ and I were best of friends. We were always together. We both loved driving very fast. We were always going at least over 90 to 100 miles per hour on the freeway. I thought it was cool to teach AJ things about cars. I taught him in small steps and explained to him when to gas it, when to brake. We felt like we knew what we were doing. We were invincible. When I heard the news that AJ had been in a crash and died, I really broke down. When I realized I lost my best friend, it hit me very hard. I had to come to terms with the part that I played into all of this. There was a time that I did blame myself for his death. I felt some type of guilt. I taught him how to do donuts and things like driving very fast. Since AJ's death, I completely stopped driving recklessly. When it comes to reckless driving, what people do need to know is not worth your life or anybody else's. I learned that the hard way.
Well, Avery, I'm glad you're here to talk about this, and I'm glad you've made the decision to stop. That's the important thing here. The thing you can do to continue to be his best friend is to be a good example of what not to do at this point. Brent, you and Nash think you do this differently, and so this doesn't apply to you. You're invincible to this, I guess. Nash, what do you think?
I wouldn't say I'm necessarily invincible, but I always try to assess the risks as best as I can. I try to keep other people out of it as much as possible, to the point where I feel like I'm the only one putting myself at risk. I understand the risk. I understand the danger that I could very well slip up and, not be here anymore. And that's very hard to kind of talk about and say, but it's the truth of it. I mean, there is a innate risk to it, just like everything else.
But what's the risk-reward ratio for you? Because you're too valuable to put yourself at risk. Like, as your dad said, it doesn't have to come down to your skill, or it's the roads, it's the uncontrolled variables. It's just not worth it.
Can I say something,
Yes.
Dr. Phil? It's not a controlled environment. You're on the freeway, you're on the main roads where other people have the right to be. And you're putting other people at risk. When I got to the accident scene and I found out that my son had passed away, I also found out that there were no other cars involved. And in that moment, I thanked God. I thanked God that my son, Johnny, went home to heaven with clean hands, that he didn't go home as a murderer. And you need to have the conversation with yourself, and you need to have the conversation with your son and ask yourselves, is this a legacy that I want to leave behind? Can I live with myself if I caused someone else to die because I wanted to have a good time? It's not worth it. It's reckless. It's reckless driving, and it's reckless thinking.
Please welcome Ashton and his father, Danny Torgeson. So glad you guys are here.
Thank you, thank you.
You're how old?
16 years old.
16. You've been driving on a track how long?
For 12 years now.
For 12
started
years.
when I was 4 years old.
Really? And you've been training him, right?
Well, to be fair, not me personally. He has like driver coaches.
Right, of course.
That'll train, but he's been training since then, and it's tracks from asphalt to dirt.
And a lot of this is in a simulator?
Yeah, at home I have a simulator, which is just me practicing, probably once a day just to practice and get time behind the screen there. And then I go to the tracks on the weekends and perform my races and stuff, and just try to get as much practice as I can. And
you're actually recovering from a pretty serious crash where you were ejected from the car, right?
Yeah, it was my first time in that car and first time at that race, and I was doing really good, and then actually hit the wall and flipped, and I came out of the car. Every time I'm in a race car, I'm always wearing my helmet, my neck restraint, my fireproof suit, arm restraints, and everything to keep me inside the car. But just a scary deal for everyone, and that's why I will never drive fast on the streets.
Yeah, because that's in a controlled environment, right? So,
Yeah.
Dad, what was your thought at the time?
Well, obviously, when at that immediate time, right, I thought the worst, when I seen him out there. But, miraculously, I still don't know how he just, he's fine. If it would have happened somewhere else, it could have been a lot different. I mean, there's paramedics on site. There's the track crew is immediately right there. If you're off racing in the general public, you have, there's no EMTs around. There's no track crew. There's nobody that's going to help you out for an accident until you have to call somebody and wait for somebody to come.
Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.